We need several people typing.
How long is this meeting? I didn't know.
This meeting is 2 hours.
Which is kind of average these days, I think.
Oh, it looks like we are live streaming now, too.
Angeles, do you have a Google Doc or something for today? Or shall I just
pasted the agenda on the chat here?
Okay.
I don't have I have not created any Google document for today, so
I'll
start from
so now.
Okay, so we have a live streaming. Should I don't know how to record the session, if this is going to record it or not.
I don't know. It's new technology. We'll see what happens.
Okay. Okay, so continue. I will.
And
I think what happens is when you stop the live stream, it allows you to save it.
Someone's breaking up there.
Is that me?
I think it was Michael breaking up. So here's a Google Doc. I think I saw an email chain with our agenda. Hello, Michael.
Hello. Is this any better?
No, poczekaj, jak to sens. Aha. Oh.
So the agenda is somewhere in the in this email chain.
It's on Wiki.
There. For some of these things like approving the meeting minutes and so on, I don't think we've got time today. I think we should have done that in our IRC meeting, which we skipped earlier in the month.
I noticed that being mentioned a lot, but I don't think we skipped anything. I think the board has been doing a pretty good job. I think we've been asking a lot of many meetings, and we could talk about. I think that's one of the items today is vision. Maybe how often we meet, or no, it's meeting schedule frequent. I think that's very important to agree how many times per month. What we're demanding of the board. It's good to agree on instead of just saying, hey, we skipped a meeting. But I think a lot of board members didn't really know that we were having multiple meetings per month.
I don't think that we were, Jeff. I think we're having our normal IRC meeting once a month, first Thursday or something. And then we scheduled these extra face-to-video meetings because we hadn't set up a face-to-face meeting and we've had these long items to discuss.
Yeah, I agree. And it's good to agree on like meeting schedule frequency. And then, if it does a video replace an IRC meeting?
I don't believe it did. These were special breakout meetings for a specific topic.
Yeah, so that's good to discuss in the agenda today.
It also was the holidays, though, so we can count that we can,
exactly.
not have some meetings during the holidays.
I mean, 5.5 hours the day before Christmas. Even my mother said we did an amazing job.
Yeah, no.
I think we should be thankful to the board members, not necessarily saying we skipped anything.
Okay, sorry, Jeff. It wasn't my intention to censor anyone. We have been doing an amazing job, and our community is asking a lot of us, especially with so many end-of-year business activities to handle in November and December. But for this specific meeting, I think that we should keep it really focused on our establishing the executive positions. That was the intention. That's what we called this for. I think the other meeting topics will need to wait next.
Agreed. I mean, we've been waiting for this. You know, the community is definitely waiting for us to decide on officer positions. So
yeah,
I'm happy to see this finally as an agenda item.
Yeah. Okay, so we do have, I've been editing this Google Doc. I'm hoping everyone can see it. And I've tried to just isolate the agenda topics that we did not accomplish last time. So that consists of the role of the board, bylaw, review, orientation for an hour, and executive positions, establishing them for 45 minutes. How do people feel about that?
I think we should probably do the executive positions first, shouldn't we?
Oh, absolutely. We've been pushing it off for 4 months, so.
Okay. The only reason we had the review was the people when they established the executive positions. That's all the review is for. We could change it to, 30 minutes and 45 minutes. I'm just trying to set expectations on what we're accomplishing. I guess we could ask, does anyone want to review the role of the board and the bylaws? Or does everyone feel they have a good understanding of the role of presidents and vice presidents and secretary and so on?
Well, I also think that, the board can establish what the role of the president, vice president, secretary, et cetera, are for this particular board. They don't have to be always the same each time.
That's fair enough, Michael. I still think we could use our bylaws as a starting point for that conversation. Should we put that as an agenda topic, or do other people feel the same way as Michael does?
Absolutely. This is about getting things done, then reviewing bylaws that are mostly just a copy paste from another organization.
Okay. Nevertheless, they do outline some specific responsibilities, which are at least a good conversation point. Do you guys want to skip the review and we can just go through the executive positions in order, like president, vice president, secretary, and as part of that, we can establish the scope?
That's what I'd suggest.
Okay. I will.
But if other people feel differently, I'm happy to entertain that. That's my personal opinion.
I'm just trying to establish an agenda that we would like to follow today. We'll just go through the positions in order. I'm mostly looking at people that are new to board service here. Maria and Astrid. It really comes down to how comfortable you are with the roles as outlined in the bylaws. I know we tried to cover this on your orientation session, but we got a little bit distracted with discussion of other stuff.
I went through the bylaws again, so and I have been at this first meeting, so but I'm fine.
I think it makes sense to go through the bylaws because sometimes what is written may not be exactly what we are doing.
Okay. Let's try and go through the roles of the bylaw, but let's try and just do it in 30 minutes. We'll try and go through it a little bit more quickly.
One thing I'd say, though, is I don't believe that the bylaws really capture what the board officers do very much.
Understood.
Maybe we could spend some of the time with Jeff and some of the other board members explaining what they did as president or what they did in those roles. And then the people would have a better idea of what has been done by actual officers.
Absolutely, Mike. Totally agree. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Would that be more helpful, Maria?
Yes, I think so.
Sure. So for our section on executive positions, I think we should have nominations.
Did we define the meeting chair and scribe yet?
I tried to cut and paste it into the chat. Can you see it in the Jitsi meeting chat?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so we've got a proposed agenda there. Does anyone have any modifications they'd like to make? I'm trying to figure out if I can share my Jiu-Jitsu thing.
The only thing about sharing the screen is it may take more bandwidth on those people that are bandwidth limited.
Right. Right.
Sharing screen, so if someone clicks on my avatar, then they might see that shared document. Okay. I'll start a list of actions here. So I think my first action is I'll take an action item to update the next IRC agenda. Okay, who would like to chair today's meeting?
You do a good job, Jody. I would suggest that you do it.
Trying. I'm willing to. I also would be comfortable if someone who hasn't done it before wanted to give it a shot. Maria, would you be game to chair the meeting?
Okay.
Think you can keep us in line?
Okay.
Okay.
So chair, and you are the secretary because you are writing things.
Yeah, I'll be the secretary, and I'll try and write this up. Maybe Angelos can back me up again like last time.
Yeah, I can help.
So we are going to have a 30-minute discussion on the roles and what has the board done before, right?
Yep.
So who wants to start?
I guess we should get the bylaws up, and we'll start with the role of president. I'm just gonna, I can't lead this discussion right now because I'm gonna be writing. Yes. So I have the bylaws here open. Excellent. And so what we want to look into is the board of directors section, the Article 3, maybe? Or
maybe 5.6 about
5 and 6, yes, maybe. Because the rest is not, is something we are already doing outside the board.
Yeah, I think 5.6 is the correct section.
Okay. So we said that we were not going to have a chair of the board, that we were going to the 5.5. I'm still trying to find the bylaws on our new website. OSGeo.org about bylaws. Thanks.
It's in the chat as well.
Yeah. Darn new website breaking Google. And what was the section for president? Sorry, I'm just catching up.
5.6.
I was actually going to propose that we do have a chair. I was considering volunteering as chair, mostly using it as an opportunity to keep track of our action items and try and make sure we don't forget things.
Okay, and then we said that chairing each session would be something that we will want to share, or?
To be honest, we only started sharing the role of chair when Venka was unable to attend meetings and wasn't able to necessarily keep the previous board in line, and the meetings started going to 2 and 3 hours. So I think that was the thing that you've been seeing Angelos and myself doing, where we decide who is going to chair the meeting at the start. I think that was a coping mechanism.
For me, it's fine if we have a fixed chair. I don't know what do the rest have to say about this.
Yeah. Angelos, is that too blunt?
I mean, I think having a different chair every time gives more experience to everyone instead of having one being the chair all the time. But I'm okay if everybody else agrees to have one person for that role. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I was in that position for many years of chairing, and I actually am very impressed with the newer boards and how it's shared. That's the best way I can say it. I think it's a great way to work together to give other people that opportunity to grow into the role.
Yep. Okay. And I quite enjoy that as well, especially because if they'd not be in a position to chair, and this gives us the flexibility to cope with that. Nevertheless, the chair in our bylaws has some responsibilities, and these responsibilities are something that was cited during our campaigning period as something we lack. I believe Helena mentioned trying to hire a secretary to keep track of everything, and that's not really the role of our OSGeo secretary. It's more the role of the chair to keep track, making sure we're not forgetting our action items and letting things slide.
Yeah, having someone taking care of that, I think that's a good idea. Chairing the sessions, I don't mind if it's shared or not. So, yes, having someone taking care of, we don't forget things. Yeah, that's useful. So, do we vote for having a chair?
Well, way we separate chairing the chairman of the board or chairperson of the board from chairing the meetings.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's good.
So, do we all agree on this, on separating the chair that keeps track of items and actions and the chair that chairs the session, the meetings?
I think it's even in the bylaws that if like the chair can't attend, someone else can chair a meeting. So I think we're kind of fine.
Okay.
Just the same way the president delegates responsibility to a vice president, the chair of the board could delegate responsibility for chairing a meeting to someone who's willing.
Okay, so Jody, you wanted to volunteer for this, you said before?
When we get down to the executive positions, this is a role I'm considering volunteering.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'm a little confused here after 12, whatever years of successfully working. Now we're adding a chair role that sort of overlooks the whole of OSGeo.
The responsibilities are there in the bylaws. They're not really extensive responsibilities, but it does speak to a need that we've encountered in the previous board. Like even now, we've got the GeoTools project waiting on legal feedback, and the original user for that asked last May. And it's just an action item we keep dropping.
So you're saying that one example, if we can go back to Helena's discussion earlier about having someone like a bookkeeper recording notes, and I don't see that as needing a new position in OSGeo called the chair to overlook OSGeo. I don't understand that at all.
But isn't it
a
already
way to go in a new position? But as for needing someone to make sure the notes are recorded and things like that, this example of a legal need goes to the committee. I'm sorry to say, you know.
Sorry, it goes to the board, right? The GeoTools project made a request at the board. The board has made a draft, a new contributor license agreement for organizations with a prospective group, and then we just haven't sent it past our legal. But we're into a really specific example here. Perhaps Helena could speak to some of the troubles she talked about during the campaign period. If Helena's
here, there are many examples where we just, even skipping, for example, the IRC meeting in January. So we really, there is like every month, there is an example of something where we didn't follow up. So we need somebody to keep track.
And in the past, well, Helena, since you've been on the board for a long time, how has that worked successfully all these years? And then all of a sudden, not working.
It didn't, like when, let's say, it didn't work. I must say that.
Really?
There were always things that slipped through. Even with things like MOUs and things like that. So, you know, when I took over the MOUs, there were MOUs that were drafted and never moved anywhere, and they were just sitting there. So there are many examples where we just didn't keep up with the agenda and with the action items because there was just nobody assigned to do that. But my experience was mostly with MOUs and getting things approved. But we have seen even with the meetings, scheduling the meetings, even like waiting each meeting for who would be chairing and things like that. So I think somebody who would keep things organized and moving would be really good to have.
Yeah.
I don't know whether I would do it through and having chair, president, then chair of the meetings. I think that sounds a little bit too messy to me. I think it can be simpler than that, but I think we need somebody to keep track and just scheduling the meetings. We don't have anybody who would be responsible for scheduling the meetings.
Yeah, and should it be another volunteer? I think asking more my board members. More and more by board, I think that we need to be very, very careful. In the sense that if there's something then we need to
wait a moment. There's a lot of echo because I think Elena is not using headphones.
Sorry,
So maybe Elena, to mute yourself while you're not speaking, like this. So Jeff was saying something that I didn't hear because of the echo.
Now it sounds good again.
Yes, it was Elena. If she's not using headphones, then there is echo. So she has to mute and unmute herself when speaking.
What I'm noticing, and I know there's a lot of sort of anti-Jeff lately, everything I say, but someone needs to listen to me sometimes. And that my perspective that I'm noticing more and more focus and demands on board members, on our volunteers, such as budget, such as this, and should we actually be asking more of our committees? And also, if we cannot ask more of our committees, then we should be looking at hiring someone part-time to make sure the meetings are set up. But I would be against a new position and asking more of our volunteer.
Well, I guess not necessarily a new position, Jeff. It's just one that we haven't explicitly named. It's a position that's there in our bylaws, and somebody here is volunteering to take on that action. So I guess I don't know that it's finding a new task and, you know, demanding it of our volunteers. It's somebody who's volunteering to fulfill this role that's already outlined in our bylaws.
Yeah, if we all behave and we all do our task and our actions and we don't forget anything, then the chair doesn't have to do anything either, doesn't have job. So this is like a backup, failback plan. If we start deviating, like on the Christmas holidays, and we miss one meeting, then if there is someone who has the task of remembering this, then I think it makes sense.
Can that be done for now in the future of OSGeo if someone isn't funded, doesn't have a job that allows her or him? You know, I think we're getting more. I see the board. I see opposite now. We're moving more towards dissolving committees and asking quite a lot more of our board members, and that there's a challenge there, and I don't really like that. I find that we're asking more and more of our board members, and I think it's opposite. We should be working as a board to come up with ways to get more volunteers, or if not, then actually funding a part-time bookkeeper, meeting scheduler, whatever, someone for consistency, you know, in making sure these meetings happen. As for having another volunteer position on the board, well, I think that's a challenge.
Can I interject for a moment with a pro Jeff note here? So Jeff, when you were president and I had a chance to work with you, you were really good at this role and keeping the board on track and arranging things so people felt empowered and which way it was up. When Venka took over, he was unable to meet that high standard you had set. And this is something that Helena and I both noticed and what we are commenting on here. So this is more about organization and less about the board taking on additional responsibilities. If you would like, we can have a sidebar about that. I do believe that we need to have our committees take on more activities. But when we tried doing that in the last 2 years, a lot of the committees were non-functional, and we've been I'm completely agreeing with you here on both counts. Okay.
I also agree with Jeff, and I agree that we should make the community or specific members of the community more active, doing specific stuff. But maybe this is not for this meeting. Maybe we should we have 4 positions defined on the bylaws. We can fill them, and if we feel on the next meeting that we should discuss about hiring someone to get the chair of the board position or secretary or treasurer or whatever, I think that belongs to another meeting.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, this is kind of more like adding another vice president, in that we're trying to make some of those tasks that the president has done in the past, and which I felt were a lot of work being put on the president, being spread around the board.
Yeah, that was my motivation in recommending we consider this, Michael. Thank you.
And that was what was discussed in Amsterdam.
Ah.
And I think it's been very good having the role of vice presidents and, you know, spreading those tasks around more people, to not burden one person with all those tasks. And I think this is just another way of doing that, Jeff. Does that make a little bit more sense now?
Absolutely. I'm all for having an executive board. Like I've always said, that president and 2 VPs. And if this sort of gets us to that, I'm all for it.
Okay, I think that was the only intent here.
Okay, so maybe we can leave the chair of the board position empty for this meeting, focus on the president and vice president and secretary, which are the most important right now, and then discuss this on another meeting.
Well, unless we appoint a chair of the board later in this meeting.
Yes, we can also do that.
Yeah.
So correct me if I'm wrong here. So the chair is automatically now a member of this executive board with the VP.
Yeah.
I'm not understanding the whole relationship of the chair to
Okay. The relationship of the chair is in the bylaws there. It is simply the chair of the board of directors, and it's just helping make sure the board meets, follows up on its action items, and is responsible for making sure the board meets its responsibilities, I guess, its duties.
Okay. I never checked the exact wording on that.
So
it's not part of the executive.
I hadn't really thought about it either, Jeff, until Jody just brought it up now. But reading through it, it seems to make sense.
Sure. +1.
Okay, let's move on to president.
So, president, okay, supposed to be the one representing OSGeo, chief executive officer, general and active management of the business and affairs of the corporation, subject to the direction of the boards of directors. In the absence of the chair of the board, the president shall preside. So if we don't have chair of the board, the president should preside all the meetings. And shall see that all orders and resolutions of the boards and directors are carried into effect. So it looks like if we don't have a chair of the board, the president has to do that job by the bylaws. President shall see that all orders and resolutions of the board and directors are carried into effect, shall sign and deliver in the name of the corporation. Don't move it. The corporation, except in cases in which the authority to sign and deliver is required by law to be exercised by another person. So it's like most of the associations, the president has to represent and sign and is the legal response person of the association. So what are the experience of previous board members about this? Do you want to add something? Do you want to remark something?
I think I could say that the responsibilities outlined in the bylaws are really specific, and they are needed for when we sign MOUs and enter contracts and so on. Socially speaking, so I think that our community has put additional responsibilities on the president beyond what's outlined here. But perhaps we could invite Jeff to speak to that.
Yes, thank you, Jody. Yeah, it's something that I've really wanted to speak about for a very long time. But if you'll notice, I haven't really been able to do that. I've not been given the stage, so to speak. But I'm happy to, because it's a position that's hard to describe unless you've sort of been thrown into it or you know, have gone through it, like Arnold or Frank or myself or Venka, sorry, you know, most recently. You know, and I appreciate all the wording here. I'm listening and reading the words. It's really the visible face. Two things, I think. It's the visible face, and it's also offering the community consistency. You know, so that means so the president should be visible to open a conference, phosphor G, sign a contract, discuss with partners, potential relationships, in the sort of in the world, these titles actually mean something, and sometimes some people will only talk to people with that title of president or VP. So it can be demanding. I'll say that. It's very rewarding. I cherished my 3 years, almost 3 months of it. Yeah, those two things, I think, visible face and consistency, that's really the important part of this role. And I'll give you one other little tiny quickly, I know we don't have much time, but I wanted to relay this, that early on in my own presidency, I met with George Gartner at the time, ICA president, also Professor Shun from ISPRS president, and they said that 2 years is by far too short for a president. And I didn't understand what they meant at the time. I was fresh into it, but it takes time to build relationships, and so I'll just throw that there. That's a whole other topic. Anyway, I'm not going there, but I do want to relay that's how I feel. I feel strongly. I agree with them. I feel like.
What problem with that, Jeff, is that
I understand the problem with our structure and the timeline in 2 years and elections, and I get it. I'm just relaying.
No, that's what I wasn't going to say, is that those president positions of those other organizations are funded positions. And so they actually have the time to dedicate to those positions. We don't do that in OSGeo. So that's a big difference, and that's why I think the last board, which I was part of, tried to split some of these duties across the vice president, so it wasn't so demanding on the president. And I know you felt that too. You wanted to have vice presidents as well.
I know, but this is my one time when you can let me speak. Mike, like, I agree with you. I totally agree with you. I've always pushed for an executive board, but yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to relay that, and you can of course disagree with me, but that's how I see the role. I am happy to see it now. Sort of the responsibility shared with the 2 VPs, hopefully. Like I said, it's very demanding. Face to the community. You need to give consistency to the organization, and it can be quite. I think that's all I wanted to relay.
Yeah, but also what I see is that we shouldn't be a very presidential organization, precisely because we are volunteers. So sharing this, splitting these responsibilities, I think this is something that we should pursue, even outside the board members. I mean, if we have a contact with someone, and maybe someone outside the board can continue and follow up and keep track of this contact. It doesn't have to be the president. Maybe for the first contact, it has to be because it has a title, as you said. But after the first contact, maybe we should try to...
So, Maria, I hear what you're saying, and I wish the world worked that way, especially as we go around the world to different organizations and into different industries. We really see organizations, especially in Asia or maybe with defense, where people really want to go to the top. And so in this case, it's almost like we're faking them out. We're presenting a top for them to go to.
Okay.
So is that...
It's a reality in the world. That's why I tried to say, when I say world, I'm not necessarily talking about Europe or North America. I'm saying that a lot of communities out there really, there are times when they really want to speak only to the executive of the organization.
And that's the problem for us. I mean, I think if we are going to have that kind of executive that has to meet with a lot of people and stuff like that, that should be at least a partially funded position, and that's what we kind of went away from with the executive director, who kind of fulfilled that role in the past, way back in the past. and we went to an all-volunteer board, but then imposed those executive director duties on the president, which I felt was unfair.
I should point out that we do have another role somewhere in here that is paid, that we just, what was the one that, was it Tyler Mitchell that did?
Yes.
That's what I'm talking about with the executive director.
Yeah,
that's what Mike's talking about.
So, 100,000, and I'd rather spend that on our committees and projects. But I hear you. So we're kind of elapsing our time that we gave for this 30 minutes here.
Yes.
I know I'm not the chair.
No, I know, but as we started discussing if we should have a chair or not, I leave that a bit.
Okay, and we've just had a sidebar on executive roles here as well.
Is there any questions that I can help answer? If anyone's wondering about the president role.
I have one question, very simple.
Yeah.
If this is not, this is all volunteer, and you said that you have to meet with a lot of people. So how do you manage? Because holidays are a fixed amount of time. You cannot. You don't have infinite time for meetings and traveling and things like that. So how many travels did you have to do while being president per year?
I don't think Jeff's a good example here because I think he paid for a lot of it with his own time.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes, but maybe it was needed that he did that in his own time, or OSGeo will suffer. So
that's right. Oh, someone else has something to say?
I was just going to say, Jeff, I think you honestly did too much out of pocket. We've been really trying to make sure that anyone traveling on OSGeo in an official OSGeo capacity, that we cover their costs. But the time is really...
I appreciate you guys saying that, but I do want, when I hear you guys saying that, and I'm not disagreeing with you, I agree with you 100%, obviously. You know, I put my business, everything on the line for all those years. But, you know, there's also, scratch the surface and you see tweets, see people saying, even during the elections, near the end of the election, someone came up and said, hey, what about this? What about board members using all the money from OSGeo? So, you know, I agree with you that we have to move to that, but then there's also this feeling and pressure. There's this pressure. I don't know how else the word to say it, but, you know, oh, Jeff's, and I'm just going to use my name as an example. I'm not saying, I don't have a violin, a mini small violin playing. I'm just saying, just throwing this out there, like, oh, Jeff's using the funds again for travel. Oh, Jeff's doing, you know, and there's that. We have to, you know, the community's tough that way.
Well, and that's why all those things should be, you know, board directed, and it's not Jeff doing this or President X doing this. It's the board is directing the president to do this, or the board is directing the vice president to do this.
And if people have complaints, we can do something about it.
Yeah, it's always for the people that aren't doing the work too. But anyway.
So Jeff, I've had a really succinct answer to that, which is, you know, they're traveling as an official representative. If you're traveling to an event as an official representative of OSGeo, we would be more than happy to pay for you. What are you interested in doing? And then that shuts them down.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I'm just kind of saying that's what we have to deal with, you know.
Oh, I hear you.
I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, but that is a factor in it. Sadly, I'm just saying it's a factor. Like, there's this belief that, oh, you know, so and so is using the money again. Like, what? I forget the wording that was used in the election, like golden something, like a pot of money.
Golden parachute is traveling first class to all the events.
Right. So there's this, right. So you have to deal with the community perception, and it's getting harder and harder. Like I'm noticing, like people are very, you know, we have this Twitter thing, and people are very critical, and there's a big audience there, and so it's a tough balance. I'm trying to get back to your Maria, that it's a tough balance. Yes.
They need a picture of you sleeping at an airport somewhere.
Right.
And
So,
okay,
sorry?
can I? Maybe I would like to add something. Maybe we should still be self-confident to send other board members to events so that not the president has to do all the traveling and representations. Maybe some people expect the president, but still we can say, hey, we are the board as well, and this time I'm here representing the board.
Doing that?
OSGeo, blah, blah. Huh?
Yeah, we've certainly been doing that, having other board members travel to events to represent us, and that's been working. And then we've also had the vice presidents being introduced, and that can help address some of the cases where someone needs to travel, but they also need to have a position within our organization in order to be respected or to pay respect.
I want to add one more little thing that I've been really wanting to say. And it's something that I took very seriously, and I'll just say this, back to Maria's question, and feedback on the role is that I had to act a little differently when I travel. I stopped being, if anyone remembers Seoul, I was not out till 3 a.m. I was the first one at the venue each morning, and maybe one of the first ones to go home at night. Why? Because I had to go to a meeting with, so-and-so. There was like a formal handshake, pictures. So it's a very serious role, and I'm saying this to whoever is going to be nominated. This is not a joke around, like we're all living in our basement, our parents' basement. This is a serious role. It needs to be taken serious, and that's what I'll say. Like, I took it very seriously, and I'm sure the next person will. But I just want to relay that it wasn't the old Jeff. If you remember me, like out till 4 a.m., 5 a.m., it didn't happen. It couldn't happen because I had that role, and I took that seriously. And I just want to say that there's a part of that, and I want to relay that to the rest of the board that you have to take these roles, all the roles, very seriously. And thank you.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Thanks, Jeff. I just wanted to say, in respect to that, the board was able to share some of those responsibilities by setting up a breakfast meeting with our sponsors and partners. Mm-hmm. And I think that we can do more of that at future events.
Yes, I think we should do more and try to split the responsibilities. And also, I agree with Jeff that this is something serious. This is not for appearing drunk in some meeting. This is something serious. And if I have to say something about this to summarize, so the president has to the face of OSGeo. He has to be serious, and it could be that even if we have all the expenses paid, maybe the time is not paid, this is something that should be, I don't know how to say this.
Yeah.
Very volunteered.
It's a tricky one for sure. Yes. There was one other thing I wanted to say that's on this role that's, sorry, I've lost it. I had a point, it ran away. Please continue. I'll try and remember.
Okay. So to wrap up, this is the president, and the vice presidents are not on the bylaws, I think, or
no.
not as a different section, but we had 2 vice presidents this time.
The vice presidents are actually there in the bylaws where they can delegate authority.
Maybe vice presidents.
They're not explicitly listed as vice presidents, but they're listed under the president's ability to delegate.
So see that delegated? The other one, actually, I remember it now. In our discussion last year, the board was pretty split on if the president should be a member of the board. So the bylaws don't have that requirement, but Venke and a few other people felt very strongly that the president should be a member of the board.
I agree that it should be, unless it is a paid position, I think it should be a member of the board because it should represent OSGeo.
I also agree because we are voting, and it's a funny thing to have a president not able to vote on something he proposed or something when it's even we granted the right to vote if it's outside the board. Otherwise, it has really no power. Just the chair should do that kind of thing that a president should do if it's not able to vote or to, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree for the same reason.
Yeah, I just wanted to put that on there just as we're discussing the role. We don't need to rehash that discussion. I just wanted to make the point that
there was a feeling last year that we discussed that the president should have received the votes of the community, and the only way that is done is if the president has been elected for the board.
Yeah, I agree with that perspective. I mean, if the president is going to be the face of OSGeo, it should be someone that not only people know, but people trust and have shown the president that they trust him by voting.
Okay, that's a good point.
So if somebody thinks that maybe we should have an outside president outside from the board, maybe we can vote this, but I think that
would be a policy change we'd have to go back to our members with, I think.
Maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
So vice presidents, it's just, yes, delegating responsibility from president above, as you have written here, right? There is nothing else about a vice president. It's just having part of the president's responsibilities, so the president is not completely full.
Yeah. And in terms of their status and prestige, they, as long as we treat the role of vice president with a great deal of respect, our partners and so just putting that out there.
Okay. Somebody wants to add something about the vice presidents?
There was, that, and someone will probably cut me off, but there was a wiki page of executive positions, and on it, and I didn't write this, vice president serves as chair of the board and its meetings. The president is not available. That must have been a previous board that wrote that, not me. So I guess at some point in OSGeo in the last couple of years, the vice president served as chair of the board and its meetings if the president is not available. That's the wording.
It's actually up there in section 5.6. The president here. Yeah, in the absence of the chair of the board, the president shall preside at all the meetings of the members.
Okay, yeah. I didn't write this section on
the wiki might be a bad summary of the bylaws or something, but there is some tie here in section 5.6 between the chair of the board and the president. In the past, we have treated both positions as one and the same.
The person that wrote that was Jive username on February 1st, 2016.
So it's probably me doing a bad job of summing up discussion.
So moving on to secretary.
Just one more comment on the vice president. So last year we also thought that vice presidents should be should also represent different parts of the world. So having Venke as president, we were left with two vice presidents, one for the U.S. and the other one for Europe region. Just a note that we also tried last year to do this somehow to split the responsibilities, and also having the vice presidents be from different regions in order to facilitate the traveling at the same time.
Yeah.
It was convenient to do that. I don't think it should be required or in any way, a feature of the vice presidents that we split them out regionally.
Yeah, I'm just saying what we did. I don't say we need to make it a rule or something.
I'm saying I don't think it should be a rule. I think we should choose the vice presidents for what they do, not where they are.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a good guideline if we are not sure who to choose.
Yeah, I think it's a great guideline as well, Maria and Angelos. I'm all for 2 vice presidents. Yes, I'm +1. Very, very good addition, and thank you to the previous board.
Jeff, do you have the link to the wiki page you talked about earlier? I'm trying to grab it for the meeting minutes.
Yep.
Thanks.
So in the meantime, moving on to secretary. The secretary shall keep accurate records of the acts and proceedings of all meetings of the members and directors, shall give notices required by law and these bylaws, shall mail all the directors within 30 days after each meeting to send the minutes, and shall have general charge of corporate books and records, so all the bureaucracy stuff. General charge of the membership records of the corporation, record of the personal contact of the members, and sign things. So anything you want to add besides this generic description of a secretary, which I think is a copy from other associations?
We just have to note that Yahim has asked that we appoint someone else as secretary.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing our secretary does is also keep records of the contribution agreements.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say I'm a bit reluctant about having a secretary outside the board because I have never seen Zakim attending a board meeting in the last 2 years. So I don't know if it's our fault that we didn't invite him, or if this is something that should be expected or not.
If the secretary has to write the minutes and send it, then it makes sense that the secretary is here.
So I think Yahim's mostly been acting as the record keeper. Mm-hmm. He also keeps track of the MOUs. I think all of that falls under like our official correspondence and contracts. But yeah.
It always comes to a head in elections when we need contacts for all charter members, and Vasily can relate to that. So this is a really important role, treasurer, recording all of our contact info for officers, for charter members. It can be demanding if that person has the time to put into it. Yeah, I think it's more demanding than we realize. I wish Yahim could relay his thoughts here, but yeah.
Yeah, it is a little bit, but we don't have any kind of, I don't know, we did not establish any channel for the community to update their email address, for instance. That's why the CRAW has to do a lot of things to ask people, because the emails are changing sometimes and people are not receiving the invitation for the vote. And then you start chasing them, looking on various social media, LinkedIn, Twitter things. And this is, yes, it's taking quite some time. And yeah, in the last years, I always did that, and in the end, I was updating the charter member database. We have a SQLite file on our Dropbox folder, and I always inform Yahim, please see that now we updated the charter member list, and yeah, that's the last version. And also keep a little bit of history there. We are not deleting all the files. So. But many members asked us for a way to connect their wiki IDs with the the charter member database, so they could update the emails as see at the moment they are changing the job or something. And
well, right now this is connected to the WordPress new website, so we can change the email.
Work address because this is changing, and use another one. But it's not only that; it's the people who recommend you, for the charter member position. Usually they have they know a person through the business, so they interact through, and they are using that email, and it's sometimes for the crow it's quite you need quite some time to ask everyone, this is your work address, maybe it's better to provide us a Gmail one. And
specific, what should we do to make this better?
We had a little bit of discussion of having to be able to update your email through the ID, the OSGeo ID. This is possible, but it requires some kind of technical work from the SAC, and maybe someone should be paid to do that. I don't know.
I think maybe we should fund this through SAC, because this is an important responsibility and critical to OSGeo. So absolutely.
If we wanted to, we could use the new website, which it uses OSGeo user ID, charter member list, because that gives us a list of charter members tied to their OSGeo user ID.
Yeah, it's a good way to start.
In any case, let's us get back on track here, guys. We've only got another 50 minutes left until this entire meeting ends.
So that's it for secretary. Treasurer shall have custody of all corporate funds and financial records, shall keep full and accurate accounts of receipts and disbursements, and render accounts thereof of the annual meetings of members, and shall perform such other duties as may be prescribed by the chair, blah, blah, blah. So custody of the money and the receipts and the budgets, right? Anything else you want to add about the treasurer?
If anybody has any questions about treasurer, I can talk about it, but that's been the essential role of the treasurer. That and taxes and any of the legal paperwork involved with corporation, insurance, stuff like that.
Okay. So, any questions or sorry?
I was going to say, Michael, you've also gotten tied up, because it involves money, with the sponsorship relationships.
Generally, I haven't done that much with the sponsorship relationships. I've handled the accounts and financing and the money transfers, but a lot of the outreach has been other members.
Yep.
So we have reviewed all the positions. Should we start discussing? Sorry, did someone say something? No. So should we start discussing about who should be in each position or what characteristics should have each position? Or I don't know how you want to, how did you do this before? Did you propose people and then vote, or how people volunteer?
You're chairing the meeting, so you get to decide.
Yeah, well, I know how I have done these kind of things in other associations, but I don't know how this has been done in OSGeo.
It's okay. We trust your leadership. Go, Maria, go.
Okay, so first, volunteers for each position. I think that's a good way to start.
I've already volunteered for treasurer, so I think we can take that off the table unless somebody else wants it.
Somebody else want it? I don't think so. Okay, so Jody also volunteered for the chair, but we were going to leave that for another discussion. So it's secretary, president, and vice presidents. I think not all of you have sent the availability for traveling, Jeff, you haven't said anything about traveling. Vasile, I think you haven't said anything either.
Did we have any interest in having a chair of the board as part of volunteering?
Vasile is no more here. Vasile lost the connection.
I see that. That's not good.
No.
Because I see that, for example, Elena says that you have very few availability, right? So do you think you can continue being vice president if you are not able to travel much, or I don't know if you want to continue in that position, Elena?
I can, but if somebody else would like to do that, I would prefer.
Okay.
Vasile is connected again.
Vasile is back again? I think. Good.
No, disconnected.
No, but disconnected the other. Hi, Vasile.
Connected and disconnected, probably as a unstable connection.
Hey guys, sorry, I'm in a stable position right now. I just switched from the Uber car to my apartment, and now I'm on Wi-Fi. And sorry.
Okay, so we were discussing if there were some volunteers for the positions. We already have the treasurer, or unless you want to be treasurer.
I got that part. No, of course not. Mike, thank you for volunteering. But I will say that I think that this position, I think, is the most difficult one in terms of getting people to understand what they have to do. I guess this is the kind of position that should be for the members with stay for more than one mandate.
Vasily, I missed you at the beginning. Which position are you talking about?
Yeah, what are you?
The treasurer. The treasurer is, I think, is one of the most complicated positions in terms of people understanding what they have to do when you have a new treasurer to yeah. I think so.
Okay, so I see there are no volunteers for any position. In my case, I don't have any special interest in any position, but I can do any of them, I think. I never been a secretary, but I think it shouldn't be too much complicated. So, or president, vice president, I'm available to anything you want, but I don't really have any special interest in that. Mike disconnected.
I would, this is Jeff, I would like to help with the executive board. So, but not necessarily. I think actually the community really wants, a change in leadership. So I mean, i.e., not me, but I think I could help. I think I could really help in the as a VP role. But as if there were two other VPs that really felt strongly, then I'm fine. Also, just being a board member and helping in other ways. But I do have a nomination for the presidency, but I'll wait for Maria to go green light for that.
Anyone else wants to?
I would like to just
I'm
add
totally
a thought
not keeping up with the minutes here, guys, because everyone's disjointed. Sorry about that.
Perhaps we should take into account the election results, or maybe who has been the vice president in the past, or who is like the more experienced people, board members here. So, for example, one thought is that if we have like members who will stand for re-election in 7 months from now. So should we nominate president from those members?
Mm-hmm.
And then risk of losing the president in the election process again, as happened with Venka? This is also something to consider.
I hadn't really considered it. I was really considering the travel and everyone's availability. I'm especially concerned about getting presidents and vice presidents over to the OSGeo Asia events where they can have a large impact. And that's really far from everybody here.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was thinking that maybe we can appoint ambassadors for each continent or even countries or chapters. And even if they are not presidents.
That was the idea about vice presidents.
Yeah, it just doesn't. Sorry, there's an echo. It doesn't have the same impact, especially in that business culture.
Mm-hmm. Or we can rename it to anything we want. I don't know. The thing is,
it's just going to be an expensive and a large time commitment, but I think it's something that's necessary. I'd love to dodge it, but I think it's what that community needs.
Yes, but how did you propose to fix that? Having Benka back as president?
No, I'm proposing that we have a vice president, at least one in track to Asia. It's just going to be a large. It's going to be a large time ask.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Some of these conferences may just also have to accept that people are going to attend remotely via video conference or something like that. It's not ideal, but it's also impractical for us to attend a large number of these. And you've seen the travel commitments that people have and just how hard that is.
Yeah.
And, it was a huge sacrifice on Jeff's part.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And that's a good point. And the other thing is, I guess we might not be able to do everything that's asked of us. Is just
yeah, that's true. But also, if they are so president focused, and if we lose presence in Asia, that's not.
Yeah. We can do. Okay.
So, if there are no more volunteering, or do you want to talk about your availability, or what kind of positions you can be in? If not, we can go to proposing someone. So, Jeff, you said you have a proposal, a candidate for something?
Yes, it's my honor to nominate Helena as president of OSGeo.
Sorry, Jeff.
I second the nomination.
But you guys should ask me first.
Helena, I think I asked you when we met in Greece, right?
I know. I'm very honored, but as you might have seen in my email, I really am overloaded right now, and I really don't have time. And we just discussed the president does everything. So we really need to find somebody who has a little bit more time to travel and to be visible. As Jeff has pointed out, you really need to be visible. And I don't think I now have the capacity to actually be a really visible, good president. So sorry, I thank you very much for the nomination. I can do the vice presidency, but even with that, again, if somebody can step in, that would be great. Thanks.
Yeah, Helena, I believe you made that clear in a previous meeting.
I think that I can appreciate. Thank you. I appreciate that. I think it becomes really important to have a strong executive. So maybe Yeah, maybe some of my actions in the past are affecting just someone to step up here. I feel bad for that, but I think a strong president and VP can work together and not so much have some one person traveling all around the world signing this, talking that. So I hope that people realize that it's teamwork. Yeah, I would hope to try to convince you, Helena, by including a strong VP, two VPs, and a president, like a team of 3 executives that help tackle all these issues that you mentioned, Helena.
Yeah, I think we're clear on the vision we're shooting for here, Jeff. Can we focus on who's available to do what? Maria, I've been really impressed with your public speaking and how well you are loved by our community. Would you consider accepting a nomination as president?
As said before, I can work in any position you want, so yes. Okay. But it's also true that I'm new on the board, so maybe...
That's not necessarily a hindrance.
I don't know. So I will need a lot of guidance if I'm president.
Yeah, would always have our full support, and we all understand that it is a big ask and a team effort. So just that I would be pleased to nominate you if you're willing to accept a nomination.
Okay.
Okay, so I will formally put that into the minutes that Jody nominates Maria, and Maria is willing.
I was also thinking on Basile, but as he has now the Phosphor-G, I don't know if he will have time.
Thank you, Maria. Yes, I have the chair of Phosphor-G, and I'm not really sure I could even commit for another term from this year now. So I did not decide yet, but yes, it will be too much for me. But thank you for thinking on this, and I also support this nomination. You did a great job with your proposal, and this is also prove that the fact you work very well with many people, not just a few ones, and I have all my trust in you. So I fully support Jody's nomination.
Thank you.
Another individual I thought would be very suitable. Sorry, I hate public speaking. Angelos, you've also been really effective in helping shepherd us through this period of transition. Would you be interested in a president or a vice president role? Would we be in position to nominate you?
Thank you, Jody. I would be willing to serve, but I'm not sure because I'm going to stand for the re-election in 6 months, and I think that all the new members have stronger mandate from our community right now. So I'm a bit reluctant, and also I'm not sure how much time I will have for traveling around the world this year. So I'm not sure. But thank you for your nomination.
Sorry, nominating people is stressful. Everyone here is wonderful and has my support. I just wanted to ask those couple individuals based on their actions.
You're pointing everyone one by one to see who says yes?
Not quite.
So I also see Astrid very shy here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or I don't think that my role would be the president. I see that you have better communication skills, or maybe I'm involved in the community and people know me, but yeah, I think others can do the job better than me.
Is there a particular office that you feel you would be very well suited for it?
Oh, did you hear me or my answer?
We
No, I
didn't
didn't.
hear your answer. Michael is asking if there is an office that you would consider participating in.
An office? Oh, yeah, I could do secretary, for example.
I would support that.
I certainly would as well. Yeah, as you know, Astrid, I've been really impressed and loved the opportunity to work with you last year. Okay.
Jody, since you would be willing to chair, is presidency something you would be interested in?
Because my work situation is so, what's a polite thing to say? I can't think of a polite thing to say. I'm unclear of my availability next year, so I wouldn't feel comfortable taking on that role. I would consider taking on a vice president role if I could assist in travel to Asia, since there's a direct flight from where I am. But my passion there is to try and help keep us on track, because we do so much nice work here. I want to make sure we follow through on the decision.
It's disappointing to find out that a number of people feel that they can't serve as president or vice president because of the large amount of commitment that they feel that those positions involve. And I guess I don't know the solution to this because of, you know, what Jeff has said about people needing to want to meet with the top and other things like that. But I feel there's got to be some way we can resolve this to make it not such a burden.
So, Michael, I hear you and I understand. In my case, I've been trying to lead by example by joining the individual OSGeo committees and taking part there. And so I feel that that's being an effective leadership technique for me.
I didn't just mean you, Jody, because Helena mentioned it. A number of people have mentioned the exact same reason for not wanting to serve.
Travel, but basically I agree with Jeff about not having the board taking on too much responsibility and working through committees. So that's kind of my focus.
And maybe, Jordi, with this strategy, we can get the members more included and without maybe less work for the board.
I'm having a hard time hearing you. Could you say that again louder?
Maybe with that strategy that you just explained, like getting integrated in the committees and bringing that work forward, we can reduce the work for the board as well, because more people get involved.
Yeah, I agree. And Jeff and others are doing a good job of drumming up enthusiasm for committees. So I think if we do have a strategic meeting, strategy meeting, I wouldn't mind exploring those ideas further, but let's stay focused. We've got half an hour left. So we have a number of nominations here on the table. If I understood, Angelos, you may be willing to serve as a vice president, but you're concerned with the 6-month re-election timeframe?
I would be willing to serve also as president, but the 6-month re-election time gives me some, I would like to avoid having the president not be elected in 6 months and redo all this again. But anyway, if others feel strongly about it, and I would be willing to try for 6 months. But anyway, I don't know. We also have another good nomination for Maria, so and Maria doesn't have this problem. She will serve for 2 years.
Okay, I had one other question for Marie. For the other Maria, you've been doing a lot of travel in the last year. Would you be willing to act as a vice president?
No, no, thank you. No, as I already sent you all the travel that I have this year. I can't ensure to be available for other travels because, as I told you, those are my commitments for this year. Yeah. And considering other cases, I don't know because it really depends on the teaching, on the research. So, as a matter of fact, I have an agenda that every month I have a conference somewhere for the different activities. So, and then I have the same problem as Angelos. So I will finish my mandate this year.
So let me ask again a different way. You're already going to a conference a month. Would a title of vice president help you make an impact at those conferences?
So you mean giving more visibility to OSGeo?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
I don't know, because as a matter of fact, everybody knows that I'm part of OSGeo. So I don't know if I really need to be vice president to give more visibility to OSGeo. It's more a formal question, as a matter of fact, because I think that everybody in ISPRS, in OpenStreetMap, in all the ACI and so on, they know that I'm of OSGeo. I don't know really if being a vice president, I can add more visibility to OSGeo than that.
Okay, I just thought I should ask, especially because you do have such a travel.
I don't know. It's not a question that I can answer because, in my opinion, no, because everybody knows that I'm part of OSGeo, and nobody never asked me in which role I am. So. Yeah, I never considered this point of view, as a matter of fact. But the true point is that I'm so committed that I can't add also another role, like being the vice president, because being the vice president doesn't mean only that you go to a conference. It means also having other responsibilities, and I don't want to do that in a bad way just because I don't have time.
Okay, I understand. I just wanted to ask. Okay, is there any other discussion we'd like to have here? I feel I've been taking up our time.
Yeah, what I see is that we don't have many combinations of positions. Some people just don't have the availability or don't think they want, and some other people are already.
Right, I get you.
So treasurer is fixed, is Mike.
Yeah.
And
then we need 4 more people. So a secretary, 2 vice president, and 1 president.
Yes, secretary. So Astrid said that she can be secretary. I don't know if somebody else wants to propose someone else or.
Astrid is okay. I second this nomination and perfectly agree.
I second Astrid's nomination too.
Second.
Me too.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Okay. It would go slowly. Who nominated Astrid? Who
I
nominated?
nominated Astrid.
That's Michael. And who seconded?
I nominated Maria. As did us.
Okay.
Vasily, I said